Yo, how we doing today? It's me for another talk stream. It's been a long time since we did this. Where we're gonna talk about a fight. I last did this. What was it? This was God Kefka 08S. Long time ago. And I had intended on doing this for 012 and E4 as well. But things happened and I didn't exactly get around to doing them. We didn't get to killing 012 until after Echo came out. So I never really had the motivation to get footage for that. And with Titan, by the time I had considered wanting to actually get a good recording of it, I could never. We were done doing our weekly clears of it as a static, so getting footage with pugs was, let's say, difficult. But we have footage for Alexander though, and we're gonna be scrubbing through it with meticulousness, fine-tooth comb, as it were. And I have all the necessary things up. I've got all the diagrams I've made. I've got the video we're gonna be going through. Got a few memes here and there. And yeah, I'm gonna scrub through it. This is super unscripted, so this is gonna be long-winded as fuck. And we're just gonna go it at whatever pace it kind of feels like for me. Yeah. As I put, if anyone shows up, you can ask questions if you want at any point during the scrub through. So, I last did a stream and thus a video afterwards about getting caught up with content back when we first beat our first Savage tier and that of God Kefka, and how that felt. About how you like when you were a baby player, you'd see people with all the good weapons and all the good armor and stuff, all the good gear. You're like, wow, one day maybe I can do that. And back then, I was like, yeah, I was pretty content having done pretty much every piece of content in the game, with the exception of doing ultimates. And here we are now, having completed an ultimate, having me knocking over a chapstick, having done, at this point in time, the arguably, though probably not arguing too much, the hardest piece of content in the game. And oh boy, has it been an experience full of ups and downs. And yeah. And something I said, like, on stream, and I've said a few times since after we got it done, is it just doesn't feel real. It doesn't feel like it's happened. Like, I've got the title, I've got the weapons, I've got the little check mark next to the duty in my raid finder, but it just doesn't feel like it really happened. But I know it happened, and it's just this mental conflict. And just, it's a feeling, alright. But yeah, and it feels enabling to an extent. With having an ultimate down, you feel like, well, I can do anything now. I mean, hell, we got 2 more ultimates to get through, and I'm encouraged more than ever to get those done now. Knowing that I can do one. I can do that kind of content. But yeah. that's a short little intro to that, something I covered last time. I'm not gonna rant on as endlessly as I did before. We're going to jump in. I'm gonna jump in to Alexander. But I think it's fitting we should start with the intro cutscene. Something we haven't seen in a long time since we first begun. And oh boy, is this a cutscene. It's a different kind of presentation than the other two Ultimates. Where the other two, it's more like foreboding and whatnot, like friggin' Bahamut, Nail, and Twin are like looming above. Twin comes down to fight you. And with like Ultimate Weapon, you got the three that are there. That just kind of all fuck off. And Garuda just kind of makes it all like that. But with Alexander, like, they're just kind of there. They're there, like, ready to square off with you. Until, of course, they jump away, because it's not their time. It is, of course, time for Pepsi Man. The old OG static killer. And that's where we're gonna start off. If I can... There we go. Clear vid. Gonna mute it. Because we don't need to hear double voice, except for when it's important of note. So yeah. We start out. Here we are. Start out with Pepsi Man up there. All of us down here. We're here positioned right at the edge of Pepsi Man's aggro range. You like in the moment you step over this line right here is when he starts to aggro, and that's always something I covered before. That I always like to do when going into a new fight is finding the absolute aggro range of a boss, just so you can that extra millisecond of uptime you can get that first auto attack and whatnot. Yeah, we're in big flashback mode. So, we start out, we have our markers here. We have basically cardinal markers that we've basically kept for the majority of our prog. They've gone through a little bit of evolution over time. We had our set for doing limit cut, like we had one here, and we'll get to that when we get to it. And down here we have there's a B down here we can't see. That's exclusively for perfect phase. So let's begin. So yeah, we're at our edge of aggro range. I start out here just having a little chat, expressing how much I'm willing to get out of here. And let's begin. Getting refresh food here. Summoner's got his Eggy over there ready to hit. Pop sprint a few seconds ahead of time. Usually I pop it around 10 seconds, but here I was a little distracted. Just to make sure, just to get in there even faster and get those little extra seconds of uptime. See, both our healers pot because they either want damage and they like the extra potency on the heals, because this fight is a bit of a nightmare for healers to heal. Something that I know oh too well. We'll get to that in a second. Pull the boss. Hit a couple times. He starts out a couple auto attacks. Put up Veil ahead of time, a little bit of pre-shielding. Now we have shielding, of course, for Cascade, which is going to cast here in a few seconds. But this Veil is not for Cascade. This Veil is for damage that happens afterwards. Because this Veil isn't going to be popped until after Cascade happens. It's going to be from the healing they do after the raid-wide hits. So keep that in mind as we go through here. So he does his first Tank Buster. Rain barely does anything. Because we just had pre-shielding, there was an X-Cog, and just a little bit of Mitt. See here that the Tank Busters, when mitigated, do about 50 to 60,000 damage, maybe a little bit less. Unmitigated, they're like 90 to 100k. On their own, that's survivable. We have 150k at this point. Not a big deal. What is a big deal are the auto attacks that happen prior and post Tank Buster. And throughout this entire fight, auto attacks are doing about 25 to 35k damage. And that layered on top of about a 60k Tank Buster, it's gonna get you pretty low, which we will see probably a few times throughout this VOD. So he starts out Tank Buster and then immediately does Cascade. His raid wide. Give us a little passage of arms for the few people that it does hit. Doesn't hit Taru because he's over here off to the side. I put on my tank stance because as soon as he does Cascade, his current HP splits in half and goes to the liquid hand right here. Which is what I will immediately be picking up as soon as I hit my last atonement on Living Liquid. And here is where my Veil gets popped, because it's right after here, we're going to be taking a lot of raid damage. So Liquid Hand spawns, I give it a Evoke, start hitting it, start doing my damage. Because much like in the original A3, there's a mechanic called Hand of Pain. Hand of Pain means that both Living Liquid and Liquid Hand need to be within 5% HP of each other, otherwise it will wipe us and we die. It was a lot more generous in the original fight, I'm sure, because I think it was 10% in the original A3. So, but obviously this is Ultimate, so it's gotta be a little bit tighter. So, along with Cascade and the hand spawning, we get three puddles and 3 tornadoes. If you step into these puddles, you get a dot, you die. Or at least, that's the idea. For some reason, these puddles, their dot ticks, like, it's seemingly every 2 server ticks sometimes. I've been able to, like, run, like, completely through these puddles and the dot never ticks. It's weird. It's a big meme we've had. So, shortly after the hand spawns, it will do either Hand of Prayer or Hand of Parting, where it's simply a distance-based thing. Where I think, yeah, we're doing Hand of Parting right now, where if the bosses are too close to each other, it'll get a closed fist, and it means they have to be separated, because you don't want them to fight. At least that's how I rationale it. When he's a fist, they're gonna fight. They're gonna do big punches. So you can see right here, right before we pull them apart, I drop a reprisal that hits both of them, which will mitigate a little bit of the autos. Because as soon as we get these apart, they're both gonna do Tank Busters. Why is this quality so bad? I mean, I know it's only 720, but come on. Come on. So yeah, we split them up. And do it's Hand of Prayer when they split apart like this. So, since they're split apart, it does very little damage. You should never die to this damage. Unless you don't get healed enough. Because, you know, it would be really embarrassing for a tank to die to just a few thousand damage. Anyway. So right about here, we get 4 Jackdaws. These tethered to the first DPS that hits them. So we want everybody to make sure. You can see here, Sarah hits this doll, so it tethers to her. Caius, you can barely see the tether right here, hits this one. And I don't know if Gentle has his or not. He stands right on top of his doll and whatnot, so we don't know. And Tara's going to be hitting his soon. So right after Hand of Prayer, slap, Fluid Strike, and Fluid Swing. Which is why we have this Reprisal up, and why I have Sentinel and a Sheltron to mitigate that damage, because that is a lot. See, we have Fluid Strike plus an auto, like, within a millisecond of each other. So yeah, 42,000 damage, very livable. 42,000 plus another 17. Plus all the other the damage that has been going on me on my way over here, because even though the hand is clenched up into a fist, it's still auto-attacking me. There's no animation, but it's still hitting me the whole time. And then immediately afterwards. See, whenever you get hit by a water mace mechanic in this fight, gets water resistance down. Means you can't be hit by the same thing twice. Like, for example, if both of the tanks were stacked on top of each other, that just simply means that the other buster would be lethal. Not that it's a strat we've employed, but if we were on top of each other at any point during the busters, that would kill us. So everybody gets their doll. About a second after the dolls get set in their ways, they all do exhaust. Which, as you can see here, I think God, what's the name of that buff? But any DPS or anyone in range, really, if they get hit by this pulsing AoE here, they get a little debuff, a little stacking debuff. Like, they call it like it's a stack, but really it's just if you get hit by 2, you die. So all the DPS have to be spread out and not get Venn diagrammed by these AoEs. Because if they get hit by 2, they themselves will pulse out a damage hit that will just kill everybody. Or it'll just kill everybody nearby them. We've had quite a few troubles with that. So if I pull up, probably a good time to show off some diagrams since this footage is extra crispy. So right now, the situation looks a lot like this. I can close this. Where we got both tanks here and here. We got the 4 Jackdaws. We got their big AoEs here. Where all the DPS are positioned just so that they shouldn't get hit by 2. This isn't exactly 100% accurate, but it's about as close as I can get. Basically, anywhere around the middle of the arena is death. Anyhow. So yeah, we got Hand of Pain casting. I don't think this Hand of Pain has ever killed us, but this is the first. Make sure you've been dealing damage equally to Living Liquid and the hand. See, it also does very nominal damage here. I get zeroed out due to my shield. And at this time, you can see right here, 2 Embolists spawn. These balls. These are a simple matter of don't touch these, don't let these touch the bosses. They can touch the dolls, but they can't touch anything else. Otherwise, they'll explode and raid wide, kill everyone but your tanks. Now my POV is not the best here, since I face the wall, because it just helps me with positioning. But Caius is down here off screen, hitting his doll. And I'm vaguely keeping track of it using the enemy list here. Waiting for it to get down to about 25% and below, because that's when we need to run these dolls into the bosses to get rid of them. And that will do reducible complexity. It does about 20,000 damage per, which is where, finally, at last, my Veil comes into play. Where it will shield the DPS from the initial auto attacks from the dolls, and as we see here, the reducible complexities. See, about 18,000 damage, another one happened over here. Very survivable. Everybody's at okay amounts of health. So I had moved the boss here both to feed that doll and also to move it out of the line of this Embolus. Because the two Embolus that spawn will each target onto one boss in particular. One will go to Living Liquid, the other will go to the hand. So for instance, the one that had spawned over here, that one targeting Living Liquid. This one that spawned over here goes to mine. So the way that I moved it, that I am no longer in the line of fire of this ball. Let's see, I think I have a diagram for the Embolus. Is this the one? No, this is for later in the phase. Did I make one for this early one? I don't think I did. But just to help visualize, let's open our good old paint and adjust. So, say we got Embolus. So they spawned. So we had Living Liquid here. We had Living Hand right here. So we had a ball spawn here that would be targeting over this way that will go straight through here. And one that went through here that's going right here. So we had to move the bosses here and here so they don't get hit. And everybody else obviously keeps in mind these two lanes so they don't get hit by the Embolus either. So those feats happen, the balls just casually go by. Now what's about to happen, as you can see, I put up a Rampart and a Sheltron because right afterwards, another set of double tank busters. Have this footage so bad. So here's where we can put the bosses back together since there's no longer going to be Hand of Parting or Prayer. And we want them stacked on top of each other for extra cleave damage. Now, I still have Rampart rolling. I didn't put it up ahead of time because I wanted it up for here. Because as we can see here, I'm not looking too good. These reducible complexities plus auto attacks plus tank buster puts me in a less than favorable position health-wise. So here, basically, I'm at 7,200 HP right now. I'm basically just praying I live at this point. And I need a benediction in order to live. See, how low was I right there? How low was I? See, go down to 7,200. What is that? Okay, I go up slightly. 8,700, and then the Benny. We had several problems in phase 1 and 2 with auto attacks. Because our Scholar had a big struggle keeping me alive. And unfortunately, there's not much I really could have done about it. It's really seemed like it was just kind of a healing issue, because like I have mitigation. I have to use those two forms of mitigation for the busters when the way that we have things planned out. I suggested we rotate things around at some point in terms of like using invulns on a couple of these busters on either the first or second fluid swing and strike. But we had already been well past Pepsi Man at that point, so much that changing things up would only cause more problems. So we just kind of dealt with it like this, and it was a little rough at times. So here we go into Protean Waves and another Hand of Pain. I think there's 5 Hand of Pains throughout the entire Living Liquid phase. So we just, make sure the bosses are... Yeah. Make sure the bosses are always within 5% of each other. So yeah, Protean Waves. Protean Waves work kind of like they did in A3S normally. Wherein the initial ones that appear, the broadcasted Proteans, they'll go after everyone initially. So you just bait them all in 1 or 2 areas to create safe spots. In this case, we have both the tanks on front of Living Liquid, everybody else in the back, as you can see here. But exclusive to Ultimate is how they function next. Wherein, as we see, we get 5 Proteans here. You can't see it, but there are 5 Proteans here. There's obviously 1 here, and there's 2 here. But there's also a 3rd one coming directly out of the front of Living Liquid just to limit the space that you have. It's a dick move, but I see why they did it. Just to create little extra funsies for you. Now, at the same time, there are 4 sluice puddles. And all of this right here, this is all distance-based. These Proteans are going on the 4 closest players, and these sluice puddles are going on the 4 furthest. It's just a simple matter. You just have your melee. In this case, we have our melee move in, take that first hit. I'm about to use the Sheltron here to mitigate this hit because, again, I'm also taking autos during this part. Giona is lucky. He's not taking autos during this part. I am. So yeah, we had the 4 closest people once, and then we make an adjustment where the ranged come in and the melee move out slightly because then it's going to do another 4 closest people. So we move slightly outwards so it hits everybody else. We use these 4 dots, not these 4 dots, all these 4 dot, I don't know why I keep saying 4. These dots are on the middle to indicate our safe distance in order to keep up time, but also being safe. Now, did I miss the tornadoes doing ones too? No, they don't do that yet. Right. So, what happens next is from 2 of the tornadoes are going to be 2 drainage tethers. And drainage are 2 tank busters. Simple as that. And here's where we elect to have our first usage of our invulnerabilities. As soon as I get to my spot over here, I'll use my Hallowed Ground, and a few of the raid wides in, Jonah will use his own invuln. Now these tethers are baited to the 2 closest people. Now it can be from any of these 3, so it can be a little weird at times. But yeah, we have this situation where I have this one, and Jonah has this one. He throws up a reprisal because Living Liquid is doing big splashes. Bunch of raid wide, stuff I don't gotta worry about because we're invulned. Now after we get hit by the drainage, I run in because I'm about to get my reprisal because we're gonna have another cascade here in a second. And I had it timed so that this is exactly enough time after my first time where it would cover the tank buster before, and now, right here, it covers the cascade. And just like Cascade before, we get 3 more tornadoes, slightly shifted for 3 new locations. And here we're just kind of going ham on AoE since the bosses have been together for a long time. I use a whole bunch of Holy Spirits here. we adjust to the new safe spot, because we're going to do protein waves again in here in a second. We just kind of go ham on AoE for a bit. Except for these throttles, which are basically dooms. And this is where our healers are just going ham on Asunas, making sure nobody dies. Now I make sure to use Sheltron here to deal with all the autos I'm taking, just to make the cleanses a lot less stressful. Then we get our second set of protein waves. These, again, function the exact same way as the first set, but there's an extra twist. So again, we have our 4 sluices and our 4 close protein wings. There's also a hand of pain in here as well, just, make sure the bosses are close. And here, starting after that hand of pain, is the big push to kill Living Liquid. Because we want to kill him before the last hand of pain. Because here we're on the 4th one. There's the last one that happens after this set of mechanics resolves. So at this point, I have switched targets off of off of the liquid hand, and I'm just going full on to Living Liquid. Putting my dots up on him, just hitting him with everything I got. Make sure all that's good. Now, as we can see here, the tornadoes, the liquid rages, are also doing protein waves, which target the closest people to them. Here we had 2 people over here, they had baited these 2, and someone did this puddle down here, because you can barely see this broadcast right here. So they do they broadcast to the first initial, people closest to them, and just like Living Liquid, they will then do another one, an unbroadcasted one, to the closest people. So I go over here, and I get this one right here, and there's a whole bunch of people, and there's 2 others on the other ones. I think Giona is getting this one down here, and Caius is getting the one down in this area. So at this point, the damage on the hand no longer matters. So at this point, I just run over here, I give myself a clemency, because there's really no point in attacking the hand aside from keeping my combo rolling, since I'm going to be taking this extra hit from this protein wave alongside the autos. And here, we have the 2 tanks take these 2 puddles because, much like the start of the phase, we're going to get another hand of prayer or parting. This time, we're going to be baiting the opposite. So this time, we want to get the hand close together with Living Liquid, where it goes into an open palm. Now, it's really hard to see, and we're about to kill Living Liquid. But, yeah, see, we have to stack them right on top of each other to do that. But yeah, we kill them before, and we move on to the rest. After this, there's a couple more embolists that spawn, where we'd have to dodge all of that. And then I forget, I don't remember, because it's been a long time since we've had to do the remainder of that phase. There's some more splashes and another tank buster from Living Liquid. And after that is Enrage. Okay, and that's Living Liquid. We move on to the transition. Limit Cut. So everybody gets marked from 1 to 8. Odd numbers are going to get Cruise Chaser spawning behind them, give them a slash, and it will knock them forward, unless you use knockback prevention. And even people will be dashed to, following the previous odd number in front of them. And this will also knock you back unless you are facing Cruise Chaser at the time of it hitting you. Now that's the basics of Limit Cut. That would be easy to do. We could easily just spread out and do it, but no. There's also Hawk Blasters going around in a circular formation. So we have to do Limit Cut while also dodging these gigantic AoEs. which you can perfectly see here because they went spawn perfectly north and south. These take up 2 pie slices perfectly. So we can see exactly where we need to stand to not get hit by them. So right on the edge of this bigger pie slice. Now we just used a method that's been popularized for doing limit cut where we do numbers 1, 2, 5, and 6 will go north. 3, 4, 7, 8 will go south. And that's just to avoid cleaving and all other troubles. What is going on? What's going on in chat right now? Okay. Just making sure everything's fine there. Okay, anyway. So I get number 5. We get to see number 1 do his thing. So the later numbers run parallel to the earlier numbers. So Gentle's number 1. You can see Cruise Chaser spawning in right now. And he's about to give him a slash. Right there. He uses knockback prevention so he doesn't get flung forward. And now we just basically trade places. Now 3 and 4 are getting hit. I move into position. I'm number 5. Dash is behind me. And get ready to run into middle. I can kind of barely see the action from a third-person perspective. Where you can see number 7 getting hit here, getting slashed. And then it's going to run into Caius, who's number 8. And dash into them. Now I sprint into middle, because I gotta get off my Veil and Passage immediately, because we're about to get slammed down by a J-kick that does about 80,000 damage. And as we can see here, very few people in here meet that 80,000 health requirement to survive. So we need to be healed, and we need shields immediately, and any kind of mitigation we have. Which is where I'm going to be taking care of 2 of those. So I sprint into middle, I pop Veil as I'm going in, and I try to orient myself well enough to hit as many people as possible with Passage of Arms. And hoping server ticks don't kill us. So bam, we in phase 2. It's time to switch musics. It's time for some BJ. Okay. Alright. And here we are. J-kick hurts a lot of people. But we live. We got 2 bosses again. Brute Justice and Cruise Chaser. I wanted to tank Brute Justice, but I didn't get him. So I got stuck with smelly Cruise Chaser. I mean, I tried to assert dominance initially. When we first got there, I grabbed a Brute Justice immediately. For the first time we ever got to this phase. But after we talked about it for a bit, we decided otherwise. It's fine, though. So we start out, everybody needs a little bit of heals, because we're going to get hit by a raid wide here soon after. Bringing the bosses together a little bit. Cruise Chaser starts doing a whirlwind, just some raid wide. It's not okay. It's really not okay, but it's what I had to deal with. So we got a raid wide. I'm doing a little bit of single target on him to get some aggro. hit him with the reprisal. Now, it's really hard to see because we have Brute Justice's big ass in the way, and along with other effects. We're all spread around in the circle, in a circle around mid. Because, as we see here, we got Judgment Nisi casting. And that's gonna put either on the tanks and healers, or on all DPS, 4 different colored Nisis. As we see right here. In which case it was the DPS. We got Alpha, Beta, Gamma, I think Delta? Well, we just refer to them by color. Blue, orange, purple, green. I pop a Sheltron here because I'm going to get hit by the Whirlwind and then a few auto attacks afterwards. Which, as you can see here, auto attacks also always very scary. So we got Link Up. Spawns 2 Chakrams opposite each other. Here we see they spawn north and south. So basically, if I and Giona stay north and south, we're gonna die. Whenever Chakrams come out, I have my camera oriented where I can see pretty much all of them, except for the ones directly east and west, if they spawn it like that. But if I don't see them north or south, they must be east and west. So, order of elimination knows how I'll need to dodge that. So we run out to dodge the Chakrams. Cruise Chaser's doing an optical sight, which is the baited one. So we're all spread out around here, not only to dodge the Chakrams, but also to bait the optical sights. So we see the Chakrams go out, we move back in, and boom. See all the baited ones from all the people over there, and you can kind of see them at the bottom of the screen. Now, what Link Up also did, aside from spawn the Chakrams, was put compressed water on Phil, our scholar, and put compressed lightning on Tataru, our summoner. These are both stack mechanics. Compressed lightning is just stacking with one other person, and compressed water is 2 or 3 other people. So we have a 2-person stack and like as many other people as you want in the water stack. And these are debuffs that count down. When they count down, that's when they go off. Those will come into importance throughout the phase. I'm not too knowledgeable on them because I don't really have to do them until the end. So, not gonna really focus on them too much. So Photon's going out. Photon is gonna decrease everybody's health down to 1. Which is simply a shield check. Make sure everybody has shields. Because the Nisis do a dot tick for about 3,000 damage. Just don't forget these are here. And specifically, I think the dot's only really there for Photon, to make Photon relevant. Until the end. So Photon goes out, we all got shields, all get healed back up immediately. And we passed our Nisis, because we need Nisi to pass through and survive until the end of the phase to complete Gavel. So we go back here for a second. We each have a partner in our DPS and tanks and healers. My partner's Caius, so when Photon finished casting and we're about to GCD afterwards, I'm going to grab that orange Nisi from him to make sure that the buff survives. So I run into him here, I get Final Decree Nisi Beta. Get some heals, I spin Cruise Chaser around. Cruise Chaser's gonna do a cleave, Spin Crusher, the only time he does it the whole phase. Don't really know why it's there. I kinda wish there was more with his positional things. So I wait for that, run through him, get some heals, run through. You can see over here, we got the 2 green Nisis, the purple one. These guys are doing the water, which is what we have 3 for. 3 is marked for our first point to do water stacks. and Taru is running over to Giona to do the lightning. You can't see it here because that's just how my camera is oriented, but you can see here in a second they're going to take a bunch of damage from the compressed lightning. Now I'm running over here to position for a mechanic we're going to have to do here in a second. Run over here, pop some cooldowns just to mitigate the auto attacks and then the amount of damage I'm about to take soon. So yeah, water and lightning go off, does a whole bunch of damage. See, our water stacks have barely enough health to live. And our lightning only has a little bit more. So when lightning and water go off, the people that originally had those debuffs get a vulnerability on them so that they can't get hit by that again or they will die. You see, Taru's got a lightning vuln and Phil's got a water vuln. As well as the people that got hit by those now have the stacks on them. Giona now has the lightning because he shared it with Taru. Chihiro got the water because she was in there. Water passes randomly between the people that are in there. In this case, it just went to the other healer. So here we got a tornado spawn from the water. So after everybody gets hit by that water stack, they need to get away from this thing, because this thing will tether you with a drainage and it will send you flying across the map into the death wall, and you will die. So it's important not to get really much closer than I am right now. Like, I think, like, right here, it's like the limit to how close you can be to that tornado before you get flung. Now this tornado will explode after a while, so we need to get rid of it somehow. Which is where Missile Command is going to come in. Bird Justice is down here, he's doing Missile Command. It's not really relevant to me. I don't need to see what he's doing. I just need to see this cast bar. Missile Command does 3 things. It does an Ice AoE on a random tank, which we'll see here in a second. Gonna put Earth Missiles on the 2 farthest players from Brute Justice, which is going to be Sarah and Taru, which are behind my party list over here. And then we'll also do a retarget of the 2 farthest players to put Hidden Mines down, which need to be detonated, which we'll see here also in a second. And then finally, we'll do enumerations on 2 random DPS. So yeah, I'm over here. I moved to this side of Cruise Chaser where I was over there before, so I don't want to be targeted by the Earth and Mines. To make sure that they get hit by them, which is right there. These 2 AoEs, these are the Earths. I move through once I see them targeted for the Mines, which are these blue AoEs, and I get the Ice. You can see the 2 enumerations over here. Now, as soon as I move through Cruise Chaser, I pop Sentinel. Because I am going to need a whole lot of mitigation here in a couple seconds. Now, the tank with the ice, is responsible for freezing this tornado so it doesn't explode. So I stand right here to make sure this ice hits it. Now, I could stand a little bit further away because this ice puddle expands to hit this tornado. But I just want to be sure, just want to be safe. Oh, another thing, little tank nuance for you. Let's go back here a second. After Spin Crusher. So I make sure to drag Cruise Chaser all the way over to the wall right here to make sure I'll still be able to hit him when I get the ice later. Because I like to stand on this little intersection right here. So I position him right here so I can make sure I can hit him the whole time. A little bit of uptime. Everybody's happy with that. So here we are again. I pop bunch mitigation. I still have Rampart rolling from before, which is intentional. I have Sentinel. I get a Heart of Stone from Jonah because I get the ice, so I'm going to take a little bit extra damage. And I pop Sheltron. Because I have to run into these mines. These mines do about 63,000 damage each, unmitigated, on top of the auto attacks I'm taking from Cruise Chaser and the Nisi Dot on me. I'm going to be taking a lot of damage here in a second. And it's important that I am ready for it. So let's recount everything that I have on me right now. I've got a Recitation, I've got an Adlo. Medica 2 is about to fall off, but I got Rampart, I've got Temperance from Chihiro, I've got Sentinel, Heart of Stone, and a Sheltron, as well as Fairy Tether. And all of this is necessary, because this does a lot of damage. So we got 60k each from these mines. So already that's almost my whole health bar. Plus the 30k auto attacks from Cruise Chaser. That's without like any mitigation. I am most certainly dead, and I have been dead multiple times when we were progging this. So as soon as that ice missile hits me, I run into these mines with my mitigation in tow. And I have to do this quickly because it's a bit hard to see because of the video quality. I've got 7 seconds left on my Nisi, and I need to pass that back to Caius soon. So I need to do these mines and pass it back to Caius in the next 7 seconds. So that's why all of this mitigation is necessary. So we run through, we get slammed. With all this mitigation, I only get hit for 39,000 each. Much more survivable. Plus the XCOG keeps me up. Then I immediately run over here to pass back to Caius before mine runs out. And as you can see here, the ice has frozen the tornado. And we move on to the next part, which is some more tank movement. The water and the lightning are about to go off again. It's something I don't have to worry about, it's just something worth noting. So as soon as this ice disappears, I have to move Cruise Chaser again. I have to move Cruise Chaser next to this ice and close to the wall to do a later mechanic. Now this is a bit of a risky part, because I'm out of mitigation right now. My mitigation is gone. Freaking Rampart fell off, Sentinel fell off, Temperance just wore off. I just have Sheltron. But I need to move Cruise Chaser. Cruise Chaser's gonna be autoing me the whole time, and I'm gonna go out of range of this Fairy Tether. You can kind of see it here, but Celine is right here giving me the tether. But going behind this rock is going to be ever so slightly out of range of Celine. So that's what this Sheltron's for, just to mitigate the autos as I move Cruise Chaser. So I go over here, I sprint to make sure I can get over there in time, and then move back. Just for like almost a GCD where I'm not in that Fairy Tether. Whilst I'm doing this, Brute Justice is casting Verdict, and Verdict is going to dictate our movement for the whole, like the next minute or so. So I move Cruise Chaser over here and face him towards the middle. This will be relevant in a second. So let's take stock of what just happened. Verdict went out. Everybody got a whole new set of debuffs. We got Final Judgment. Final Judgment Penalty 3. Final Judgment Decree Nisi. Everybody gets one of these. This tells you that you need 3 debuffs by the time Gavel goes off. And you need a specific Nisi. Otherwise, your party is dead. If you have one person with the wrong set of debuffs, you're done. Now, I don't really know why they incorporated Final Judgment Penalty 3. you don't even need to really consider it, because if you do things even remotely correctly, the needing 3 debuffs is pretty irrelevant. And it only counts debuffs that are Final Judgment ones, which includes itself. So what you need is Final Judgment Penalty 3, which is gonna be there regardless. You're gonna need your Decree Nisi and the Nisi you actually need. In which case, I need the green Nisi. That's just something to take note of for now. It's not terribly important. I don't really worry about it until later, but everybody else... Well, actually, no, I don't have the Nisi right now, so I need to worry about it sooner than later. So Water and Lightning just went off again. You can't see it because I'm looking at Cruise Chaser, but you can see everybody took a lot of damage. Now, I face Cruise Chaser towards the middle because he's doing Limit Cut. Now, this isn't the same Limit Cut as we did in the transition. This is a different Limit Cut. Cruise Chaser's going to go Invincible, and he's going to spawn a Plasma Shield in front of it. Plasma Shield can only be damaged from its positional front. Ergo, where I'd be seeing right now. Now, I'm lining him up like this so that all of our range can hit that shield. And we need to kill this shield, I think it's about 3 GCDs. Otherwise, Cruise Chaser gets a damage up and wipes the raid. Meanwhile, Brute Juster's casting Flare Thrower. This is a big old conal AoE. It's not really a tank buster, per se, but you want your tank to be taking it. It targets the closest person to Brute Justice, and they need to aim that Flare Thrower over at the other tornado, which is behind me. Since we don't have an ice to freeze it, we need to evaporate it. Yeah, so we move on to Limit Cut. Cruise Chaser goes Invincible, so I hold a little bit. I keep 2 Atonement stacks under Fight or Flight, because those are my 2 strongest hits. Because I'm going to be helping kill this thing. As well as keeping 1 Intervene, just to leave in there for extra damage. So he goes Invincible, just takes 0 damage. And then the Plasma Shield spawns. And as soon as that sucker spawns, I slam it with Ring Atonements. Because this thing needs to die quick. It doesn't have much health, but you need to kill it quick. Meanwhile, everybody else is kind of getting in position for what we need to do, which is where everybody needs to get the Nisis they need. In which case, I need green Nisi, which thankfully, Sarah is right there with it. I just need to run backwards and get it. Other people have more difficult movement, and it can be a real pain sometimes. Because if you have a Nisi, and you touch a different color Nisi, both of you die. You get into a car crash. Nobody's got insurance. This whole phase is about lanes and controlling your movement, where you can and cannot be. And most of the time, you cannot be on top of another person, or remotely close to them, really. But you need to do that while also doing things like the stacks. So we killed the jail. Cruise Chaser's no longer invincible, and he's going to do a Whirlwind. So I give him the old reprisal and grab my Nisi. And everybody else grabs their Nisi too, which is our designated time is during the Whirlwind cast. And I move over here. So at this point, again, the water and the lightning have passed once again for 2 different players. And now Phil has the lightning, and he's going to do that with me. And this is the only time I interact with lightning in the whole phase. And the water has moved to Sarah, and they're going to be stacking in mid for the last water. Now anybody who doesn't have any other mechanic to do, they are lining up behind this ice. Because we're going to need to line of sight Propeller Wind soon. Which is why I moved Cruise Chaser here. So everyone is doing damage. Lightning's about to go off. I've got the only mitigation I have right now is Sheltron, which I have timed perfectly. Even though it's got 2 seconds left, it's gonna soak this lightning. What's also going to be timed is a scripted clemency of mine, which I will use as soon as that lightning hits me. Nice crit, 69k. Nice. Everybody doing their water, they get hit by that, I get the lightning. And now everybody's going to be lining up in a manner of Bop-G. Blue, orange, purple, green. Can't see it very well from my perspective, but that's what's going on. I have green, which means I'm going to be going to the very back of the line. So all the way where Brute Justice is, basically. Now I have to stay right here to make sure Crew's facing this way just for any melee to hit their positionals. But also, I need him here so we can line of sight Propeller Wind. Now it looks a bit iffy here, and I don't know if I position a little bit differently. I do move him. Actually, I don't think I even moved him there. But as long as, like, this ice is, like, through with, like, the middle of his hitbox is, like, majority on the side of the ice, I don't think it matters. So I hold here for a second. Propeller Wind. If you're not line inciting this, it does a lot of damage, and it gives you a Confuse. And that Confuse will, you'll run around like headless chicken. You'll run towards your party members, you'll auto-attack them, and you'll kill them. So I gotta line sight it. So as soon as I see that start casting, I start working my way to the back of the line. I run into Taru because he needed it. I don't really look and see what debuffs people need. I just kind of go off of sight. I see that there were 3 colors here, and then he didn't have one, so logic dictates that he must need it. And I do that for any other color. In this case, I got a really easy example, because I just needed to go to the back of the line. I switch targets to Brute Justice here, because obviously I can't hit Cruise Chaser, so I just throw a dot on him. Gavel goes off, and all these debuffs go away. Lightning and water, no longer a thing. Even though I got past lightning, it gets cleansed. And lightning and water are no longer there. And we all did it right, obviously, because this is the clearing. We had our 3 debuffs, I had the 3 final judgments. And that's it. That's Gavel. Now we move on to the easiest part of the phase, since now our movement is no longer dictated. We stack the bosses up just like in phase 1. And just start AoEing like crazy. We get Photon. This one only hits the tanks because double rocket punch. Now, much like before, I don't have much mitigation. I have Rampart and Sheltron to survive this double rocket punch, and a Heart of Stone, which is graciously given to me. Now he gives that to me because Brute Justice isn't going to be autoing him for a bit after this. But yeah. I get an XCOG because I'm going to be taking autos. This double rocket punch hurts. I think it does like 110,000 damage unmitigated. So you tanks need to be healed up and mitigated because it hurts. Otherwise mitigated, it does about 65k. Nice mitigation. Now, maybe focused on the big punch, but something else is going on right there. Pay attention to this part of the screen here. You can see Have our dancer wiggling out over to the left. Sarah is going to the opposite side of the arena because after double rocket punch is super jump. Super jump targets the furthest person away from BJ at the time of cast. So she's gonna yeet himself over there. And I fear for my life because I'm getting low on HP. And our scholar has no MP left. But that aside, Brute Justice then retargets the new furthest person away, which is Giona, or really could be anyone at this point. It doesn't really matter. I'll do Apocalyptic Ray, which is a gigantic ass cone, which I'm just barely out of range for. I think the line's like about here. Sarah's standing off to the side and behind Brute Justice, so she doesn't get hit. We're all over here and we're living. Except for me, because I'm at 30,000 HP. Now I'm at 10,000 HP. And I'm scared. Now this wasn't an intention of mine, but I saw our scholar had no MP, so I elected to use another clemency. Just to make sure we survived, and make sure I survived this whirlwind. VJ is wiggling, waddling his ass back here since he's done doing his thing. We got a whirlwind. Let's give it a reprisal. And here's where we gotta finish him off. Second whirlwind, just make sure your healers are paying attention. I put up Veil, make sure we survive. And that's it for the phase. Cruz is at 0 HP. For Justice, fucking, there he goes. Now I did make a diagram, a really detailed diagram for this phase, but I don't think we really used it much. Like I did a pretty good job with this arena. I think we used it once. Someone appropriated it and like did all our movements on it, but I never put anything on it. I just made the arena. This little side note there. Huh. So yeah, if you kill one first, the other starts casting its enrage. Just make sure you kill it before that happens. Equal damage and all. Then we move on to Alexander. We gotta switch our music again. Because it's time to rise up. There you go. Alright. We got our 3 bosses that spawn in. Everybody gets some debuffs. Temporal Stasis is cast. Temporal Stasis stops time. You are frozen in spot in your place, so make sure you know where you're going. We have it figured using this handy dandy diagram here that we have static positions set for everything. Where green, where house arrest tether, the green and red tether will always go to the left boss. No tether will go to the right boss. And we have blue tethers where tank will always go left, DPS will always go right. Where tanks and healers will always prefer the north side of each boss, and DPS the south. People with aggravated assault will always go to the Brute Justice side because he does 2 cleaves to the 2 closest people, and Cruz does 3 cleaves to the 3 closest people. So I get aggravated assault, so as that diagram indicated, I go to the Brute Justice side. So I go over here, over with the blue tether and the other one. Pop pot, since time's about to freeze, including all debuffs and buffs alike. Time freezes. And the robots do their thing, tethers resolve. cleave 1, cleave 2, and cleave 3. It's hard to see Cruz, but you can see all 3 cleaves. Root does this too. Obviously, you gotta position so nobody hits by 2 cleaves, otherwise they'll die. You get physical, magical, fire resistance down. Time unfreezes. Alexander spawns in. Giona gets aggro because he's about to get slammed by chastening heat. Start wailing on him with our openers. I put on tank stance because I'm about to evoke it. Because you get magic foam, chastening heat, and then he does 3 divine spears, which would be lethal if you got hit by it. They do a lot of damage. Enough to kill your tank if you're not mitigated and healed. Throw a Requiescat in there, even though I don't do the magic rotation. I do it for some extra damage, even whilst I'm doing my physical combo, since he's about to jump away, so I'm not going to be able to do it anyway. I'm only going to have time for my damaging rotation. So we get Inception. Now, Inception, from a mechanical standpoint, is the most important mechanic in the whole fight, since it indicates whether or not you'll be able to kill the fight or not. So we got 3 bosses spawning at the edge of the arena. People get tethers, there's balls, there's a cat. And it's just... oof. So, you're either going to get hit by a tether, or you're going to get a crystal. In this case, I got a crystal, because I don't have a tether. That's how you know if you got a crystal. Now, if you're a crystal, you got a very important job. You got to position yourself around this cat. So I go to the wall, everybody else adjusts around us. You can see the balls doing their thing up north. Yeah. So you want to put your crystals like this, because you want the true heart that comes out of Shinoa to hit all 4 of these crystals. Meanwhile, you got your balls kind of positioned as we have our other 4 party members positioned. You can't have any of these. You don't want to take these too early, because they do damage based upon how big they are. But when they explode, they leave a big old field. And those big fields cannot touch each other, or they'll explode. And they'll give you damage down, and you'll die. The damage down is just to say fuck you to tanks, I guess. So we drop our crystals. Heart spawns. That's not going to do anything for a second. We run north, because much like in A12, these crystals, when they explode, they do proximity damage. No, that is not your cat, Tabby. Your cat is doing the ukabs, not the tea. They're done with tea. So yeah, we got the fields here, so they're not touching. We have them on the red buttons. And here we have the first set of crystals exploding, which is this big old purple explosion. Now right around here where Giona and I are is about the limit to the proximity of hit, because either you'll take about 6,000 damage or you'll take about 50,000, which is survivable by everybody if they have shielding, but why take the extra damage? So we move over here, and the heart has stopped. Normally, the heart would try to make its way over to Alexander, buff Alexander, give him damage resistance down, damage up, you'd die. But, for reasons, because of lore reasons, if the heart touches 4 crystals, it gains the Enigma Codex buff. It stops in its place, you can't kill it anymore, and it's gonna hang there for a second. And now we and the rest of the party are going to be doing our positions. because Brute Justice is going to do 3 flare throwers. 3 closest people. It's got Giona on the left, me in the middle, party on the right. So it's going to hit me first, because I'm closest to Brute Justice, so Giona next, and then whoever is closest in the party. So, flare thrower on me, on Giona, and on the party. So basically, you're looking like this. I know this is a mess, but this is kind of how you gotta work it. Got your 4 crystals here. Got your 4 balls where there's initial spawn points and where they explode. Alexander up here. Brute Justice here. Brute Justice always spawns west. Got tank 1 here, which is me. Tank 2 here. Rest of the party. Get 3 cleaves. That's part 1. That's part 1 of Inception. After your cleaves resolve, I look over to Cruise Chaser just for footage purposes. I don't need to look at Cruise Chaser, but he's there just to show him disappearing. We hit hard a few times to build gauge for anybody relevant. I do it to make sure I got 2 interventions for later. Alexander's casting Inception, so he's gonna go invisible and then do a sacrament from one of the random spots around the room. Now we watch the heart. Now the heart is going to show where Alexander's going to appear. It's going to run and suicide into the wall. You can see here, well, I can't see here, but it takes million damage, it dies. And here's where we have the second part of the Inception formation diagram. Where here we have reoriented to where Alexander would be. Now this isn't a specific case for what we just saw, but this is an example where we have it set where there are 2 aggravated assaults, 1 shared sentence, and 1 restraining order, the blue tether. So the heart shows where Alexander's gonna be. He's gonna do a sacrament, so I have that label out here. Brute Justice is here. He's just there. Like, he's not important for this phase of the mechanic, but it's important to remember that he's still on the map. So we have the tanks and the shared sentence go to the right of the heart. Everybody else to the left. So we saw where the heart went, so we're going to the right of it. Enough to satisfy the tether, so it's far enough apart. You can see Alexander spawning in here, and Cruise Chaser has spawned in the middle. So he's about to do a sacrament. We're taking the shared sentence. And there. Now we move in for the final part of Inception. Part 3. So Giona stays at the wall, because he's going to be baiting a super jump. The 3 DPS and myself are going to hang out here, in between Cruise Chaser and the wall. The 2 healers and the remaining DPS are going to be baiting Cruise Chaser cleaves. So it's going to, once again, be the 3 closest people. And here's where we'll see that. Alexander poofs away. Brute Justice is up here, still up west, so he's the static position. Our healers orient themselves to Brute Justice. And these cleaves resolve. We hang out on this like metal strip here to indicate this is a nice safe spot for us, and everybody else is just closer. So yeah, they get into spot. I put up Rampart in anticipation of doing my intervention. See, Super Jump is casting. As soon as that 3rd slice goes out, I move mid. For a reason I'll explain in a second. I put a intervention on Giona because he still has a physical vuln, so this super jump is going to do a lot of damage, so he just mitigates it. He has a rampart and his camouflage, so I give him a little extra. He's got venison as well. And he just takes barely any damage because of that. He gets immediately healed back up. Now, I stand in mid here because I still have aggro on Alexander from when he poofed away after Inception cast. So I stand here in mid because he's gonna immediately spin around and auto me. So I stand here so that he's facing north, and melee can just start hitting his flanks because they'll know exactly that he's gonna be straight north and south. It's a little tank tech. I still have aggro, so I'm gonna take this first auto attack that he does immediately. I have Rampart. Even without Rampart, it's not a big deal. It's one auto because Giona immediately evokes off of me to take the next Chastening Heat. Which, since he's... I don't know where that train of thought was. I do know I need a drink, though. So yeah, he's gonna take another Chastening Heat. I give him another intervention, because I still have time left on my Rampart. And that's why I built up 100 gauge. So I could do 2 interventions. So he gets slammed for 94,000 damage. Even with all that mitt. Chastening Heat hurts. Give hint, and then immediately uses Superbolide. So this is our second invuln set. So he's gonna take the Divine Spears, and we're just free to just DPS on him. I just shirk him just to make sure he has aggro, even though there's no way I could take it back from him since I don't have stance on. And Gunbreaker just has insane aggro generation anyway. It's just a safety thing. So we got 3 Divine Spears, couple auto attacks, and then comes Wormhole. The final wall of the fight. Alright, so it's time to talk about Wormhole. Many would agree. Many would think this is the hardest mechanic in the whole fight. And to an extent it is, due to the amount of permutations, since there's a whole lot of randomness. So you can see right here, you got Cruise Chaser, Brute Justice up north. They can spawn interchangeably like this, so Brute Justice could be west, Cruise Chaser could be east. So that's one set of randomness you gotta deal with. Cruise Chaser's casting Limit Cut, and Brute Justice starts casting Link Up. Alexander's behind us, but he's not really very important. But remember, he's there. He's straight south. So we're gonna get Limit Cut. We're gonna get our numbers 1 through 8 again. So we're gonna be doing slashes and dashes again. And Link Up means we're gonna get Chakrams. Now, unlike the first set of Chakrams, these are gonna spawn perpendicular to each other instead of straight across. One will spawn north, and the other will spawn either east or west. Now, we can't see very well because of my POV, but aside from everybody getting their numbers, we can also see, or probably saw it beforehand, that Alexander will cast Void of Repentance. Yeah, see right there. And we can see right here, here's Void Puddle that spawned. In this case, they spawned, this is another set of randomness. These Void of Repentances can either spawn northwest, southeast, as they did here, or northeast, southwest. So that's another set of randomness on top of it. So you can have the robot switch sides, and these Void Puddles switch sides. Along with all the other randomness of everybody getting a different Limit Cut number. So before we break down any further, let's just kind of watch this resolve. So I got number 2, so let's keep that in mind. Chakrams are about to shoot. Cruise Chaser does his first slash and dash. Brute Justice does a super jump. Second slash and dash. First people eat the puddles. Apocalyptic Ray. Second set of puddles eat. Sacrament went through. Third set of puddles, final slash and dash, stack marker, and enumerations. That's all of Wormhole. That's a lot going on. Now, as much as there is a lot of randomness in this, really, there's only a couple things you need to look at to make this mechanic not very difficult. You only need to note where the two robots are at the start, what number you get, and what set and where did the void puddles spawn. You don't have to worry about anybody else's number. I mean, unless they're going to kill you, but in which case it's too late. So, here's your basic wormhole. Here's what we got. In which case, this was Cruise Chaser, this is Brute Justice. So, everybody with different numbers is responsible for a different mechanic. So let's go back here to the start. So we stand in the middle here because we have to bait the chakrams. So specifically for me, as soon as I see Link up finish casting, I start jumping. Because that's when I know I'm going to get my number. I got 2. So 1 and 2, I'm going to take the third soaks of puddles. So that's what I remember to myself. I know I'm going to get the first dash, so I'm going to go opposite of Cruise Chaser. For a grander point of view, we're basically doing the thoughts per second strategy. So we've just committed that to memory. So things I noted to myself, that I got 2, so I go opposite of Cruise Chaser. So that's what 2 does. I go to the wall, pop my knockback invuln, even though I don't need to since I turn around anyway. I note where the puddles are. Pop arm's length. I wait to get dashed, and I run to east. East and west are our designated safe spots for when you are not doing a mechanic. No mechanics are to be done directly east and west, aside from the first void soaks, but you will be in the puddle, so you won't be totally east and west. So I go here to wait. I wait until these void puddles shrink twice. So 1, 2, and then I run into position. Like that's all I thought about. I didn't think about what anybody else was doing, even though there was a lot else happening. And then run into mid and hope we all live. So the overall point of Wormhole is to soak those void puddles in a way so that you don't die from a vuln, but also don't clip anybody else with any other mechanic. Now you're very limited in the places you can move, because shortly in, Brute Justice does his super jump in Apocalyptic Ray, which basically limits a massive cone. And I have made basically diagrams for every single number set. So barring the one we got, here's the movement for number 1 and 2. Where I have the color coded, where blue is the odd, pink is the even. So number 1. Wait, what's going on here? What's going on with this? Hold up a second. Oh, it's because I have like 10 billion things open, that's why. Okay. Alright, so 1 and 2. So 1 goes to Cruise Chaser, waits for the slash, goes to Cardinal, waits for the third soak, which is why I have the arrow so deep into the puddle. 2 does the same thing, except they do opposite. They mirror the movement. They go to the edge, they take their dash, they go to Cardinal. Wait for the third puddle. So that's the movement I did right there. There's a sacrament here, but that's really not terribly important for 1 and 2. It's important for 3 and 4. Or specifically for 4. So let's go 3 and 4. Okay. That's not loading for some reason. It's struggling to load this for some reason. Okay, there we go. Alright, so 3 and 4 are probably the easiest ones. They have the fewest amounts of movement they have to do. So 3 and 4 are responsible for brute justice. 3, if you get 3, you run immediately to brute justice and you hang out for a second. You wait until brute justice jumps. You pop your arm's length through your shirt cast, because that's when Cruz is going to come by to slash you. By the time he does that, the first soaks will have happened, so you can hang out and go to the Cardinals and wait till the mechanic is over. If you're number 3, you do 2 movements. You go to BJ, pop your arm's length, you go to Cardinal, you wait. 4 is ever so slightly involved. Now the reason, okay, one additional thing about 3. 3 is also responsible for baiting the apocalyptic ray. There's a big old orange cone here. Now I don't know if it's an actual rounded cone or if it's just a straight across cone. It doesn't really matter, but it's, yeah. What's important is that the cone limits a whole bunch of this void, and probably this void too. This isn't an accurate representation, but it's a big cone. So 3, after Brute Justice jumps, you take your cleave, you hang out there for a second, because after Brute Justice jumps to 4, you're gonna turn around and do his APOC ray. After he does that, you can go over to your card. Now 4, you bait the super jump. Your movement's ever so slightly more in depth. You hang out at the edge of the red button for the super jump, because you want to make room so that you can not get hit by the APOC ray. So you stand on the edge of the button, and by this time this void isn't here, so you're safe to stand here. So you stand there, you get jumped on, then you move ever so slightly down and to the right to both dodge the sacrament, which isn't accurately placed here, but so you don't want to get hit by sacrament, and so you don't get hit by APOC ray. You hang out here until you get your dash, then you go to Cardinal, and you're done. Real simple. Now 5 and 6, 7 and 8 are where things are complex, and probably the most difficult ones. I mean, just by virtue of movement, they are the most difficult. Sorry. See, 5 and 6, they got this weird zigzag-ass movement. Now here's where some general rules of thumb come in line, where odds, with the exception of 3, will go to the Cruise Chaser side, and evens will go to Brute Justice, with the exception of 2. So 5 and 6 are responsible for the first set of puddles. Since they're not going to be slashed and dashed by Cruise Chaser for quite a minute, they have time for the vuln that you get from the puddles to wear off. So their movements are going northeast and northwest, not to the extremes, because that's where 3 and 1 are going to be, but over here until the chakrams go off, which I don't have depicted here, but they happen for everyone, so it's not a big deal. So you hang out at, like, northeast-east and northwest-west-ish, and you wait for the chakrams to go off. After the chakrams go off, you hang out on the cardinal inside the puddle so that you don't get hit by any dashes or anything. You want to be far away from dashes. You take the first set of puddles, so that's why I have them to have you at the very edge, because that's how you'll be at the full width, the full diameter. So you take the puddle and you sprint your ass back to where you just were to take your slashes and dash. So you go in between the two dots and the cogs. Take your slash, dash. Same for 6. And after that, then you go to the cardinal because you're done. 7 and 8 basically have the exact same principle, except you take the second puddles instead of the first. So your movement is, I mean, it's the same amount of movement, it's just different. So just like 5 and 6, you go to Brute and Cruise side, just slightly south of the buttons. You wait for the chakrams. But instead of going into the puddles right away, you go to the cardinals first. And you wait for 5 and 6 to do the first set. After you see 5 and 6 do theirs, then you go in and take the second one. Ergo why the arrows are slightly deeper into them. And just like 5 and 6, after you soak your puddle, you sprint your ass to in between the buttons to do your slash and dash. It's real tight timing, but as long as you sprint, you should be able to make it in time. We had a few problems here and there with people being able to make it in time, but luckily we got it in the time when it mattered. Yeah, and that's the movement for everyone. You only have to worry about is where the robots are, so you would literally just flip this in any way if these robots are different or if these puddles are different. Like, the mechanic isn't as daunting as long as you only worry about the movement you have to do. But yeah, that's Wormhole. So let's watch one more time with all of those movements in mind. So I look where the robots are spawned. I wait for my number assignment. I see I get 2, so I run opposite of Cruise Chaser, go to the wall, hang out for a second, pop arm's length, note where the puddles are, wait till I get dashed, go to the cardinal, wait for the third set of puddles, take them, and then everybody runs me for this stack. This stack is a lot of damage. It's about 800,000 damage. So we need big heals real quick. And then we get 2 enumerations, again, both on 2 DPS. We just have ourselves split out where healers go to the left facing Alexander and tanks to the right. So we have 3 people every time. 2 DPS that don't have anything, they just hang out either north or south. Enumeration does no damage if it's done correctly, so you're all good there. Alexander comes back. This is like the kind of the final stretch of damage you can get in before the burn. And we got Mega Holies. These suckers hurt. They hurt so much. So we need to put 20% MIT and shields up on these super quick. So as soon as I'm done with my dot combo, I slam Reprisal on that. And Addle is on there as well. To be careful of snapshotting, we put those on as early as we can, but not like super early. And even with all these shields, look at how much damage everybody takes. People down to like 20,000 HP, a couple cases. We need to heal back up really quick because he's going to do a second one immediately afterwards. where we had Chihiro casting that, pre-casting that Cure 3 before first damage went off. And she does it again. Because then we had to get healed up again because there's going to be a whole bunch of raid wide coming up real soon. And that's the last thing Alexander's going to do for the whole rest of the phase. Here we just burn him away. We're super ahead with damage right now. You want him around 25% by the time he friggin' poofs away. We get him down to like 15. We're super ahead because we're like in our bisque gear and we do a lot of damage. The burn. The burn in every sense of the word. Both bosses come back. BJ comes down with the J-Storm, does a lot of damage, arguably more damage than the Mega Holy, because you can't mitigate it very well. You can only put shields on it. We got Cruise Chaser with his 25-second Hard Enrage Eternal Darkness. Brute Justice starts doing J-Waves as your Soft Enrage. Alexander Prime's doing a 75-second Hard Enrage Divine Judgment, but you can't hit him because he's invincible as long as these other two bosses are alive. So, yeah. Healing and damage. Now, we're real good on damage, so what I do is I go over and throw Goring Blade on Brute Justice. Just so you can see both Phil and Taru put their dots on him as well, so they can start ticking down as we're finishing off Cruise Chaser. So I go over here, finish him off, a couple Holy Spirits, move over. Here's where the big damage comes in, because he's at 5 stacks of damage up. 6 stacks. And we gotta kill him real quick. We have a set of mitigation planned for this and healing. I pop Veil around 6-7 stacks. We've got Heart of Light up, we got Sacred Soil, Temperance. I think that's Fey Illumination. I do Wings here in a second. Actually, did I miss it? My bad. Yeah, I'd pop Wings for just a second there just to get that server tick. And just a second here, I'm going to use Reprisal. It's going to overwrite Giona's by a second, but we do it just for safety. And I didn't honestly even need it because we kill him before like the next tick of damage anyway. So yeah. And now we finish off Alexander. Just bust him. But we save some of the damage cooldowns. I wouldn't know anything about that. I'm a simple-minded paladin main who works off a 60-second rotation. Here we can see we're way ahead of this cast. Since it's so slow, we're at 3%, 2%. And here's where we just hold damage, because we want to wait for our cooldowns to come back up. We do our completely necessary volume adjustment, because we're about to hit Mobius. And then we finish him off. Need tank LB3 to survive this hit. Both of us are mashing it to make sure we both get it. I get it off this time. Have a sucker. Just for a little extra. And we're about to hit phase 4. And as necessary, we must also... It is time. It is time for Mobius. Alright. Have our pots ready. Start slamming at it as soon as we get back into the fight. But for now, we got a cutscene. From here on out, Every piece of damage matters. Because we are fighting up against a tight DPS check. Now, it's not going to be pretty obvious by the time we get to the end because we absolutely smoke it. But it's a tight DPS check. Right here, I was given a plate of key lime pie, so hear a little bit of clanging. But it was some good luck pie as it turned out. Pots are up. Do our openers. Perfect Alexander. The final word. We all get some new debuffs. We got our light and dark beacons. I'm not sure what they're actually called. They're like some, like we got contact regulation, prohibition, stuff like that. Light and dark beacons. And we got light and dark marks. Simply enough, if you're the dark beacon, or if you're dark, you're going to be repelled from the dark beacon, the person with the purple debuff. But if you get too far away, you die. If you're a person with the yellow debuff, or the gold one, if you're the gold one, people with the yellows are going to run towards you. It's going to be a forced march. But if they touch you, or get just generally too close, you also die. So basically, you gotta orient yourselves in a way so that dark people will be able to get away from the dark beacon but not get too far away, and the light people will also be able to get close to the beacon but not too close. Which is where we have 1 and 3. Now before that forced march goes off, we get ordained stillness or ordained motion. Blighted bouquet. Don't move. Don't move. Don't do anything. No auto attacks. No actions. No wiggles. No emotes. No nothing. So I get 1 GC up and I just de-target the boss. Get these purple swords, which is stillness. And our forced march is about to go off. I'm a light player, so I'm going to be attracted to the beacon, which is over there. And who is it? It's Gentle. Gentle is the beacon, so I'm going to be drawn towards him. And about 3/4 of the way through the forced march, whatever he didn't cast first will be now what he casts. So now it's motion. So I call to wiggle. So we just spin around in a circle, jump, do whatever. We get light swords. Motion and stillness are not binary. Stillness is super strict about not doing anything. Motion is a little bit different. Wherein motion, you have to be moving your character. It will still kill you if you're standing there just doing actions. So you want to be moving your character. So if you do a Dragoon jump, that's technically not moving your character, and you will die. If you are casting a spell, you're not moving. You're gonna die. Something we learned plenty of times throughout our prog of this phase. Next, we have Optical Sight. These are the new spreads and stacks. Spreads are going to be on everyone. So we spread out, but not too far out because we want to get healed, because he's going to do the opposite of what he did first. So I put up Veil, and I reprisal the boss to reduce this damage. And you can see here, barely does anything. We split up into these like 4 quadrants of players to make moving into these 2 stack markers a lot easier, because these 2 stack markers are on random players. So we needed a system wherein we could reasonably get to whichever one we needed to, and we had different people ready to move if they had it or needed to move to a different side. Like, for example, in our case of us 2 tanks, Giona and I, if both of us had a stack marker, he would be the one to move to the other side. Wherein we had the case where we had tanks and melee on 3, ranged and healers over on 1. In an ideal scenario. So yeah, he does the stack markers. We have plenty of health. We're gonna live it. It's gonna be great. Then we move on to the first major mechanic of the phase, Fake Calibration Alpha. Now, Fake Calibration is kind of similar to Gavel in a way, but it's a little bit different. Where instead of meeting debuff requirements, it's movement requirements. So, presuming you have the codex from Inception Formation, you get to see your clone. You get to see your future. The future as dictated by Perfect Alexander. Because he's calculating how he's going to wipe your group. Because he's a Time Lord and he will not tolerate you in his perfect arena. If you don't got the codex, you couldn't see any of that. All you saw was a long-ass cast bar, and then you die. Because you have no idea what to do. So, let's break down what happened. And so there's optical sight. Alright, so it does Fate Projection Alpha, I guess. I don't know why. I guess that's just spawning the clones in and whatnot. So Calibration is long-ass cast. You see your clone, you want to watch your clone and see what happens. They're going to run around with their heads cut off with the chicken. Not really doing much damage. The first thing you'll see is either motion or stillness, as dictated by the colors of swords that we noted earlier. So we got motion first. Then, the next set of mechanics are going to go off. You're going to see the Defamation, which I believe was on Gentle this time, but he's on the other side of the boss, so we can only see this massive explosion. This person needs to be opposite of the party, because if anybody gets hit by this, they'll get a Magic Fall. And the other mechanics that happen will kill them. Just like an A12. So we got our Defamation that shows up first. See the Shared Sentence next. And then we see the 3 Aggravated Assaults. The Aggravated Assaults cannot stack with the Shared Sentence because they will die. So anybody else that didn't have any mechanics, like you can see myself, is that Sarah? Who is that? No, I think that's Phil. I don't know. But us, we need to be with the stack, so we're gonna be on the left with the stack. And the last thing that happens is 3 sacraments. 3 of the clones will do sacraments, one of them won't. The one that doesn't is the one that's gonna be the safe side. In which case, our safe spots are either going to be B or this blank one here. In this case, it was the blank one. So everybody gets into position, we keep hitting the boss a little bit. No, actually no, looks like... Okay, Taru had the Defamation, so he's over there next to the clone, because he can't be with us, obviously. There was also a second motion that I did not make note of. So, since we have double motion, we have to keep moving. But we don't want to wiggle, because we have a stack marker, and we don't want to kill these people over here with the Aggravated Assaults. So, instead of wiggling, we jump. So we just keep jumping the whole time, since we have double motion. Now, it could be any combination of ordained mechanics. It could be double motion like we got. Could be double stillness, in which we don't do anything. It could be motion and then stillness, or vice versa. You just gotta pay attention to what swords we get. And then everything resolves real quick. And that's Fake Calibration Alpha. Really easy. as long as you're paying attention. The hardest part of the fake calibrations is keeping up your rotation while watching your clone. Then we got our first tank buster of the phase, Ordained Capital Punishment, which is effectively 3 double rocket punches followed just by a regular ass buster. Now we have it set, there's 3 busters throughout the phase. We have it figured so that Giona and I will just heavily mitigate this first one, so we just pop all of our cooldowns. Sentinel, bring in our 30%, our ramparts, our individual ones. The reprisal the boss. These tank busters will do no damage to us. We got X-Hog on Giona, because he's going to take the main hit. So, like, look, this dude, no damage. 18,000, 30,000, 32,000. That's auto attack damage for tank busters. Followed up by Ordained Punishment, the true tank buster, which will put a physical vuln on the primary target, which is Giona, which means I need to evoke, because I put on my tank stance partially through that. So I provoke, and I give him an intervention, although I don't think I gave it to him in time. Yeah, gave it to him in time, but Now I have the boss. We move on to Fate Projection Beta, the ever so slightly more difficult projection. Now in here, we're going to be incorporating the very first set of mechanics that we had when we started the phase, the light and dark beacons and players, as well as normal Alexander mechanics, the the tethers. So we call out for someone to say that they're a beacon or not, in which case we see that Taru is a beacon, because beacon players will run to the wall and they won't move. If you're not a beacon, you will run either towards or away from those players. So you see here, see there's the 2 beacons, they're on the wall, and everybody else is moving. In my case, I'm a dark player. And I'm a dark player with no other debuffs, because as you can see, there's a blue tether right there that's between 2 other people, and there's a Christmas tether somewhere else. There's a shared sentence on one of the light players. Got 3 super jumps, 3 farthest players, or as they're J jumps in this phase. After the jumps, I stare at the one remaining clone that has not moved, because he dictates an optical sight. In which case, it is a spread, because it's a whole bunch of small balls, instead of 2 big ones, which would be stacks. So we call it the spread, we start positioning for the beacons. We see that there's a Radiant Sacrament coming from the southern clone. It's off screen, but since we can see the Radiant from. Start keep hitting the boss a little bit, and then we orient ourselves. So, based on what you get, what mechanic you got dictates where you're going to be orienting yourselves in relation to the beacons. So we can see we got light beacon over there, dark beacon right here. So everybody's gonna be running away from this location. But we need to spread out in a way so that nobody gets clipped by double jumps, and that all the tethers resolve correctly. So I don't have a tether, I have nothing. So I'm gonna go run straight across because I don't have any distance requirements. I don't have to be close or far away from each other. So I'll be running straight across. So I'll be baiting the western super jump. So I get force marched over here, I sprint to make sure I get in the right place. I get hit by the western jump. Now it's a spread. Optical sight happens next. So I just stay here, and then I run south for the Radiant Sacrament. And that's beta. Now we have diagrams for this. I didn't make any personally because we didn't really need it because we already had them. I did make a Perfect Alexander Arena, but I never used it. I don't think because I ever finished it. But you know what? In the spirit of things, let's use it now. Let's demonstrate how this is meant to be done. God, I lost it. It was there. Okay. Edit. So we got. So we got our dark beacon about here-ish. We got our light beacon. I don't know. They could be anywhere around here, really. Probably better to be over here. No, I don't want that. I want this. Man, there's our two beacons. We got our bosses. Our boss is like up here, doesn't really matter. Where did that come from? I just got our clones here. Doesn't matter. So you want... Let's see, let's make our... So you want a dark here to... So if they were running away from everybody, we'd have a dark down here. Dark over here, which was me. And a dark up here. Yeah, it's hard to see. Up with a stack. And these are going to be who baits our super jumps. So we'd have... I don't know which one was which, but it'd probably be... One would go here. One would go down here. And one over here. Since the beacon just... Beacons don't do anything. They just stand still. And the one that doesn't jump just kind of stays there. So we got... Yeah, we should probably just put our lights, which we'll put them like right here. So we had a Christmas tether. No, that's not the right thing. There. So we got a Christmas tether that goes in between a light and a dark. Which that dark player goes north, because obviously they have to be close to the lights. All the lights, if you're a light player, you don't gotta do anything. You're gonna just run north and just have a gale time. It's gonna be great. It's only if you're a dark that you actually have to worry about anything. But we also have a light with a restraining order tether, and they go south. And the dark with that tether goes south. So you can meet that requirement. So, as messy as this is kinda how you want things to look. And then we have then we got our Radiant Sacrament down here. That's not the right thing. Nope, nope. No fill. There. And our Radiant Sacrament's run here. So we all run to our places. Let's watch her again. So everybody identifies what debuff they have, if any, what color they are, if they're a beacon or a player. They align themselves. But yeah, and it looks like in this case, Phil is the dark with the blue tether. And who's that? Who has? Oh, I can just look. Caius has the I know. Sarah has the Christmas Tether Dark, so she runs north with everybody else. And I have nothing. And all the other light players, they just go north and they don't care. I'm the no debuff, so I go west. We get their jumps. We have you can see right there as a meme that Sarah made where she thought it was stacks, so she went middle. Because our plan for if we had stacks instead of spreads, because stack markers go on the beacons during beta, so we have all the darks agreed to meet mid. She thought it was stacks, but it was spreads, so she kind of went there. Now we have our healers go middle for spread to make sure we can have everybody heal up, because the J jumps hurt a lot for the darks they jump on, except for me because I'm really my tank. But you can see Phil's like at 44,000 health. He's not going to survive a spread marker because the spread markers do about the same damage. So he needs to get a heal up and get a shield. Because like, look, he was at 19,000 health when those spread markers hit him. Would not have survived. So that's why healers need to be around mid. They run down, do our Radiant Sacrament. It's kind of tight, especially for the people up north to get down south. But you have just enough time if you sprint. We move on to the second tank buster, the easiest tank buster, because here's where I will be using my second hollowed ground of the fight, because 7 minutes is a good cooldown time. And I just take all these hits, because hollowed ground. Jonah takes the boss, everything's cool. Now we have entered the burn, and the final set of mechanics, Almighty Judgment, or Exatrines. So Exatrines spawn 3 sets of AoEs that show up ahead of time. So we see here's the first set. These don't do any damage. These are just showing us the future, kind of like for the Fate projections. So these show us the order in which they're going to spawn, and we want to stand on the third one and move to the first, or a 3-to-1. All this time, we have Alexander autoing the main tank, because, you know, here's the second set, and there's the third. So the first set spawned down here, and the third up here. So we're going to go up here, and then we're just going to move straight south. Now, whilst we're doing this, Alexander's going to do a big-ass stack marker on a random player, which is akin to the incinerating heat from the end of Wormhole. So they're like 800 to 900,000 damage. Hurts a lot, so we have mitigation planned out. And I think I have it somewhere here. I have our mitigation sheet. Yeah, here it is. We have a chat macro. Here's our mitigation. We have My Reprisal, an add-all for the first one. We got Shield Samba, obviously a shield, and Sacred Soil, Heart of Light. First one's good mitigation. For the second one, we have Gianna's Reprisal. We have Temperance, Fey Illumination. There's another Sacred and Succor, and Veil. I also put in Passage of Arms there. But yeah. So yeah, we do our 3-to-1 dodge. Irresistible Grace is the stack. So we move here, we don't move, and we stack up, mitigate. Good, look at that damage. Easy game. Done, do nothing. Heal up. Final tank buster. I pop on my cooldowns because we share the first hit, and he's going to use Superb Glide. Take the first hit. I also take the second, but I'm gonna live. He has Superb Glide, so he didn't take any damage. I Evoke off. And that's the end of the tank busters. Then we have another Almighty Judgment. It's the exact same thing as before. I have Veil popped, which I announce as such. We see our 3 sets of things, so here's a third one. We're gonna be moving to the west for that first set. Run straight to the middle. Use Patches of Arms to hit the people it does. I think it only hits like a couple people, but better nothing. And here we have the burn. No more healing is required. I don't know why we get a rapture there. But yeah. But we're way ahead at this point. And this thing is just gonna die. Temporal prison. Spawns these. Put them in our order of damage dealers. Scholar goes first. White Mage. Giona finishes his burst as Gunbreaker first. I still have atonements as we see here. And I have time to get my dot off, I believe. Yeah. And we just destroy this. Like, in our re-clear, we even killed this even faster. We killed it even before Sarah gets imprisoned. But this time she gets hit. And like, it's like right after it dies. Yeah. I don't really have many nuances in terms of tanking insight I can provide for the last phase. It's really just a lot of pop all your cooldowns for a couple of things and then just do your rotation normally. It's nowhere near as interesting as like the whole rest of the phase, whole rest of the fight. But yeah, that's the whole fight. And all of its frogginess. Yeah. Took us well over 8 months to kill this. Well, way longer than it should have. Due to scheduling conflicts, internet issues, and sometimes just people just didn't show up. But yeah. I really don't know what else to say. And yeah, that's it, we did it. This is our first clear. 1 ultimate down. We did 1 more re-clear. We did 1 re-clear of this, as that's what like just a couple people wanted. There's only really 1 other weapon I wanted, and I got it. I got the gun. I probably could have done 1 more, but a couple people only wanted to do 2 runs. I don't know. I think I'm done with this fight for a while. I'll probably come back to it at some point in the future. But not anytime soon. Too many bad memories. Too many deaths to auto attacks. I lost count how many times that happened. Or how many car crashes with Nisi. It's just, ugh. But yeah, that's the Epic of Alexander in its entirety, as best as I could explain it, with my nearly dead voice at this point. Man, feels good to have 1 down. And, we got the hardest one done first. Got 2 more to go. Because next we're going to be moving on to Ultimate Weapon. Which I hope doesn't take anywhere near as long. Which it shouldn't. Especially with, much more favorable people to be around. But yeah, that's that. Pause this, go back in game. Back to normal music. But yeah. What a long 8 months it's been. That was even longer than 8 months. See, it especially took longer because we had to replace a DPS the first time, like shortly after we got to Prime, and that was a long period of reprog. But at least in light of that situation, when we did get back to it, we came back with a lot better strategies than we did. Like, what our first set of living liquids, like, until we, like, reorganized. We were seeing, all the way to the end of living liquid, we were seeing those last splashes, that last hand of pain, that last tank buster. Nowadays, like, or not nowadays, but, like, once we reorganized the strategies around, we blew up Pepsi Man. Like, I was awestruck whenever we'd kill that sucker, like, before Hand of Parting. And yeah, I guess final notes would be, I'm glad I got to experience it and we got to get through it. It may not have been the best of times, and oh boy, was it really not the best of times sometimes. We did pull through, and as much as personally I may not have gotten along with a couple members, I do respect the skill they put in. So, let's not mix messages. I didn't like a couple people, but we did good, and I respect them. I respect the effort they put in. But yeah, that'll be it. This was 2 hours and 20 minutes. Woof. Yeah, I don't know where else to go here. I'm at a very similar feeling to how I was after we actually killed it. I don't know how to end things. So, I guess, yeah. I'll be throwing this up on YouTube afterwards. Another getting caught up part 2, I guess. And I guess insofar as stream is concerned, we're looking to start Ultima Weapon after Labor Day, since we now have our full 8 members. So I guess, stream, I'll see you then. Peace for now.